All right, hello and welcome to another Expert Inside interview. My name is John Golden from Sales Pop, online sales magazine and Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from a sunny San Diego. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Walter Crosby, who is up in Michigan. Probably a wee bit colder up there, Walter, yeah?
A wee bit.
And Walter's a proud alum of the University of Michigan and holds an advanced degree from the School of Hard Knocks. Uh, he created his own firm, Helix Sales Development. Here, Walter coaches, trains, and supports successful sales teams using evidence based sales evaluation and assessment tools by the Objective Management Group and sales enablement technologies through Membrane. And you have been able to see your clients have 37 to 43% increase in revenue after their engagement with you, which is very impressive. And that's why what we want to talk about today is one of the biggest challenges for sales leaders and organizations in general is hiring and retaining top sales talent. I was just saying before we came on air, Walter, is like anybody I talk to, nobody has ever told me that they have the sales hiring down. They know how to do it. They know how to easily find the right people and get them on board. Normally, when you say to people, are you having trouble or whatever finding good salespeople or hiring? Normally, they just go into that kind of despairing look.
That's true. It's a struggle for most organizations, big or small. It's the same issue.
And why is it, Walter, that it's such an enduring issue?
I think it's because the basic premise is that salespeople are different than everybody else in their organization. They and what most businesses do is hire salespeople the exact same way they hire everyone else in the organization.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a few things that we could change that would have great impact on the outcomes of getting better talent. So, but if it starts with a mindset shift, like most things in sales, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we shift what we believe, we shift how we think about something, we have a better shot of being successful. So it's that first piece. We're different, right? I mean, we're just wired up differently as salespeople.
And it's what's interesting, as you said, what you just said there about the fact that we just use largely the same hiring process for sales as anything else. And let's face it, salespeople, whether they're good, bad, or very mediocre, if there's one thing they can do is sell themselves in an interview, right? So if you're using the same approach to sales as you are to other roles, salespeople got a bit of an unfair advantage when it comes. And like I said, a mediocre salesperson can come into your organization seeming like they're a superstar because they interview well.
Well, and it's often the last great sale they make for the company is the one that they make with the hiring manager. And they're better at interviewing because they know the material better than the hiring manager, right?
Yeah.
As you said it, they're selling themselves. So we need to treat salespeople professionally. We need to treat them politely through this interviewing process. But the thing we want to do is treat them how a prospect is likely to treat them. So we should bring some skepticism. We should be looking to qualify these people. We shouldn't be selling the company, just like when we're dealing with a buyer. We need to qualify them to make sure that they're a good fit for our solutions and our offerings. So before we start selling how great our company is and how wonderful our culture is, we should be challenging these salespeople in a way that gets us to see how they react when they get a little pushback, when there's some skepticism.
On that point, though, Walter, I think you're correct. But what do we do normally? Is we just go online and find a job description for a salesperson, and then just change a few words here and there, and give it to. And so they're operating against that. But we're not challenging. To your point, is during the interview process or whatever, we're not challenging them. And part of the reason is we haven't defined what an excellent salesperson looks like.
Exactly. So the first piece is, what do we want this person to do? What do
Hmm.
they need to be really good at? How are we going to know when we find this person? So we start with a description of what this person needs to do, what their behaviors are, what they need to be good at. And then we switch that. So when you look at an ad on, say, Indeed or LinkedIn for a posting, it's the same. It's a list of accountabilities and responsibilities and how wonderful the company is, and this is a great opportunity, and you can make a lot of money. They all sound the same. They all look
Hmm.
very, very similar. So what we recommend is that we write a different style ad
Right.
where that individual can self-identify. We're not talking about the company. We're talking about who they need to call on, what familiarity they need to have with a marketplace.
Hmm.
And if they have to sell value, if we're selling a premium product at a premium price, they need to be able to differentiate and sell value. So that is a shorter ad, and we get that candidate to look at it. It's like, I'm really good at that. I call on those types of buyers. I know that marketplace. I should apply to this because I can do these things.
Hmm.
And where there's really little mention about how wonderful the culture is and how wonderful the company is. It's really about who it is that we're looking for.
Hmm. No, I would agree with you, and I think that's a far better approach, because at the end of the day, as you said, is there you also need a salesperson to want to join your company because they see, rather than you selling to them, they see the opportunity themselves, as you said, because they're looking and thinking that's what I'm particularly good at. Because otherwise we're ending up in that situation, and then we have to validate that, right? We have to validate that they're
Mhm.
actually good at what they say they are. Because have you ever had a salesperson who says they're not a good networker, they're not a good prospector, they always on top of things? I mean, they say all of these things, but
Right.
we need to test them.
And there's we do, and it's challenging when we look at a resume. There's
Hmm.
always BS in a resume
Sure.
with their salesperson, and that's fine. We understand it, but we're looking for things that are sales related. If they took an initiative or if they led a
Hmm.
project, those aren't
Yeah.
sales things. We want them to say, I grew revenue 40%. I took a territory that was barren and had zero revenue, and we grew it to 1.5 million in 18 months. Right? We want to have those type of things. So that's when we're looking at the resume, we're looking for sales ideas. I spoke to a guy the other day as a candidate, and he was like, I'm really looking for a great marketing position. And I'm like, well, the job ad actually said sales role. And he's like, well, what's the difference? And I'm like, I think we're done.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know the difference between sales and marketing, you're not going to be effective. And I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Because my process is really geared towards qualifying, saving time, so we're not talking to people that are not really ever going to be successful because they're not qualified. And
Hmm.
that's a big shift for hiring managers. They fall in love with a resume.
Yeah.
They get excited because somebody's got industry experience, and I try to help people see that industry experience isn't as relevant as they think. Right? I want them to have experience selling to my buyer. And what I
Right.
mean by that is if I'm selling to CFOs and we're selling a piece of software that the CFO buys, I don't need that candidate to have experience selling software in my market. I need them to have experience talking to CFOs. They might
Right.
have a network. They know what their concerns are. They know how the language is used. That's what's really important, not the specific industry experience, because often that you're going to get retreads.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And that's exactly, and that's what often happens is within industries where you can fail multiple times, but just because you have industry experience, somebody will always hire you.
Hmm. And that's true. And you're going to get somebody that's got 3 years experience or 4 years experience at 4 different organizations. How many bad habits have they picked up? Right?
Yeah.
It's we have to, if we want to elevate our sales team and elevate the talent on it, we have to be more discerning, and we have to qualify these folks. And it's a challenge to get people to think different.
Mhm. And also, I mean, Walter, I mean, you mentioned a couple of things there about ideas and that. Also, is- salespeople who've invested in themselves, I think, because there's a lot. If you see, like, or if you come across a salesperson who has no certifications, who've never even taken or read books or whatever, anything to, they've worked on their craft, right? They've taken it a personal accountability to do that. That's always for me a red flag, is because how can you be in a profession and not be trying to get better all the time?
Well, it's a great point, and it's important that we ask those structured questions about those type of things. So, I mean, that's a perfect example of a structured question. In the last year, Mr. Candidate,
Hmm.
what have you done on your own to improve your skill set or improve your mindset? And it's really surprising how little responsibility that individuals take to just reading a book.
Yep.
I mean, that's 4 books a year in a quarter, that's not much.
Hmm.
Most of us read 10, 12 books a year. It's just reading 4 on your own, or taking a class, or taking advantage of some seminar, right? They
Yeah.
should be able to come up with something, because a company should help a salesperson get better, right? There should be coaching, there
Sure.
should be some training, but whose responsibility is it for the career?
Yeah.
As you said, it is the individual's responsibility to get better.
Yeah. And if you're sitting around complaining that the company doesn't invest any time or energy or money in training you, but you're not doing it either, then it's
You
for
don't have
me.
a leg to stand on. Yeah, you're
Exactly, exactly, exactly. Um, so that was really interesting about investment in themselves. But I also like what you said is, I mean, looking for some ideas or creative thoughts or something that's going to make somebody stand out a little beyond just the regular noise.
Yeah, we should be thinking about a series of questions that help us understand if this person really is good at the things we need them to do.
Hmm.
So if it's a hunting role, we want to ask them, what are their prospecting techniques that they've used in the past that they've found successful, and why? And you can enter into a conversation about how they go about it. Are they following a process? Do they do it consistently? If it's an account management role, how do they figure out a way to go 3 wide and 3 deep, right? To grow that. Do they use technology to support and make their lives easier? They should be able to talk about their craft, because sales there's a technical aspect to it, right?
Hmm.
We are technicians, but there's also this artisan craftsman
Yeah.
component where we need to be authentic. We need to be able to listen and have conversations with people. So we need both of those, and we want to figure out if this individual has those skill sets. Just because it says it on a resume, you know, there's a lot of business on the resume that it really isn't valuable.
Yeah.
Um,
And how much, Walter, does coachability count?
it plays a huge role in the process. So if we have somebody who is maybe a B player,
Hmm.
or we can't afford an A player, right? Because not every company can afford that top salesperson, and their comp plan is structured in such a way. So if we have to go after that B player, the ability for that person to accept coaching, to want coaching, and to use the coaching to get better
Hmm.
is critical, because if somebody wants to get better, we can help them if we have that structure.
Yeah.
But that's the other side of that coin, John, is do we have that ability within our organization? Is our
Yeah.
sales managers capable of providing coaching to these folks? And
Yeah.
can we get them to be better?
Well, that is a huge challenge because basically very few people know how to coach properly. And unfortunately, I mean, and it's one of the most egregious areas. Is yeah, we promote salespeople who are really good. We make them sales leaders. We give them no training. We give them no management training. We give them no leadership. We give them no coaching training, and then we expect them to be able to coach their salespeople. Let's face it, most people's last coaching experience was probably their high school volleyball or football coach, like just shouting and saying, "This is what you do,"
Right.
and
And
that's not coaching.
demanding reports and
Yeah,
demanding certain, giving them myths that your pipeline needs to be 5 6 times
yeah,
uh, what your goal is because it's arbitrarily
yeah,
set. I
yeah.
mean, the sales managers, how many of us that have been in a sales management or sales leadership position were there because some business owner thought, wow, you're really good at the sales part and
Hmm.
you've been very successful. So maybe you can go help all these other people and get there.
Yeah,
The mutually exclusive skills, it's helpful if you can do both. But the first time I was promoted to sales management, I was kind of excited until I
hmm,
got in the car ride. It happened at a Christmas party, and I got in the car to go home, and I was explaining to my wife that they just offered me this director role, and I was all excited. She's like, "That's awesome. Do you know how to manage people?" And 100% right. I had never. She could because she followed up with the little tag. You can barely manage yourself.
ah,
And so what did I have to do? I had to go out and figure it out because
yeah,
they didn't know how to do it either. Otherwise, they'd
mhm,
be doing it. So,
yeah,
and most people don't. We get that salesperson, that revenue comes off the street. We lose that. We
mhm,
get the sales manager becomes frustrated because
yep,
he or she can't do the job. The sales team becomes frustrated because they're not getting help or they feel micromanaged. And
yep.
then ownership is like, what did I do? How did he fail or how did she fail? And then they go to a competitor and you lose it all. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a terrible idea to hire to
Yeah,
promote.
and we know how long people last in that position. Unfortunately, I mean, the statistic was always about, I think, like 15 months or something is the average tenure for sales leaders because of that, and therefore, as we see, Walter, it's a two-sided issue, isn't it? The hiring of salespeople, it's hiring the right salespeople, and it's also knowing what you're looking for and being able to actually nurture that talent when you have it and manage it properly.
You have to understand the limitations and strengths of the organization.
Hmm.
And you have to really understand the nature of the role that you have. I mean, I sometimes like we need to hire 3 salespeople. Like, okay, that's great. What do you want them to do? Well, I want them to sell.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a more detailed conversation, and they all of a sudden they understand they themselves have 3 different sales roles
Hmm.
that they're trying to put people into the same bucket. So when you go back and reconfigure and understand who does what well and who does and what do you want them to do, you have a business development role, you have account manager role, and then you have that sort of hybrid sales role. You want them to do a little of both.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to slot, like I would be terrible at a farming account manager role because I would get bored.
Hmm.
Uh, but if you put me in a pure hunting role where we're doing biz dev and we're trying to create something out of nothing, there's a challenge. That's fun, but not everybody thinks like that.
Yeah.
So we have to
Yeah.
be clear about what it is we want them to do, and then put the people in the right seat.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think, Walter, and that we'll finish on this point, but I love that you raised that issue because what happens then is oftentimes we get, because we're hardwired like this as humans, we start to go, okay, I need to fix those things that Walters isn't very good at, and I focus on all the things that you're not very good at instead of going trying to turn you and say, Walter's not that good at farming his accounts and looking after them, so I'm going to work on that with him, instead of going, Walter's a fantastic hunter. I should not have him doing any of that stuff. I should be focused on, and maybe there's somebody else in the organization who's great at the other part, and maybe we can even team accounts or whatever. But focusing on the strengths rather than trying to always focus and fix perceived weaknesses.
That is such an important point, right? If we can get better at our strength, and it's going to be much less of a lift to get this person to grow and to be more productive and be a better performer in your organization. And we try to put a square peg into a round hole. Because sales is sales is sales, people think, and it's not.
Yeah, and let's face it, when people are good at what they do, they generally are happy.
And happy people are more loyal. They're more productive, and they're more effective.
Yeah, and more fun to be around.
Yes, there is that.
Yeah. Well, listen, Walter, this has been fantastic. All of Walter's information is going to be below this video. But before we go, please do tell people a little bit more about you and what you do.
I started my practice to help sales managers because I felt they were underperforming because they didn't get the help that they needed for the reasons we talked about. And then I realized when I started the practice that sales managers don't have any money. They don't have any budget. They're just out there on an island. So I pivoted, right? Because it's one of the things we do as entrepreneurs. We have to pivot to what the right thing is. So my idea is to help that entrepreneur help their entire sales organization, right? Part of that is talent. Part of that is sales management. Part of it is a process that everybody can follow. So I've pivoted to being able to help the entire organization, and it's just so much fun to watch people get better and watch companies grow because they have the right fundamentals.
Fantastic. Well, listen, Walter, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today with us. Thank you for watching and listening. I will see you all again very soon. Thank you.